Title: The Tale of the Poem Written by a Lady in Waiting After the Death of the Empress of Emperor Suzaku. Once upon a time, the Empress of Emperor Suzaku, who was the daughter of the Minister of the Right from the House of Onomiya, passed away without a proper burial. There was a lady in waiting who had served the Empress. Her name was Suke. She was lovely, both in appearance and nature, and because of her delightful qualities, the Empress treated her with deep affection and care. Suke, in turn, was very happy in her service and passed her days in contentment. However, she eventually became the wife of the governor of Hitachi province and had to leave for that distant land. Although it pained her greatly, she had no choice but to go, as her husband strongly checked her. Even in Hitachi, she remained devoted to the Empress, longing to serve her once again. One day, Suke gathered beautiful seashells and carefully placed them into a box, intending to offer them to the Empress as a gift. However, when she returned, she was informed that the Empress had already passed away. Overcome with grief, she cried bitterly, though she thought it foolish to mourn something that could not be undone. Despite her sorrow, she gave the box of seashells to the minister, saying, "Please use this for the recitation of prayers." When the minister opened the box, he found a poem written by Suke within it. "I gathered these seashells along the shore, but where will they drift now, since my lady is no longer here to receive them?" Upon reading this, the minister choked on his tears and, sobbing, composed a reply. "These seashells you have gathered, though hollow with grief, I shall cherish them as the only keepsake of my beloved lady." It is said that at the time, there was not a single person who heard this story without shedding tears. Thus, the story has been passed down. Title: The Tale of the Poem Written by Kino Tsurayuki after the death of his son. Once upon a time, there was a well-known poet named Kino Tsurayuki. When he was appointed governor of Tosa province, he traveled to his post with his family. In his final year as governor, his son, a boy of about 7 or 8 years old, passed away. His son was exceptionally dear to him, and Tsurayuki loved him deeply. When the boy fell ill and died without a proper burial, Tsurayuki was consumed by sorrow. He grieved endlessly, crying in anguish and becoming physically ill from his heartbreak. By the time a month had passed, his term of office was nearing its end. Though he was overwhelmed by his grief, he knew he could not remain in Tosa forever. As he prepared to return to the capital, he recalled the moments when his son had played and laughed at this very place. The memories filled him with such sadness that he wrote the following poem on a pillar in his house. "The reason why my heart aches as I think of returning to the capital is because the one who cannot return remains here." Even after returning to the capital, Tsurayuki's sorrow never left him. The poem he inscribed on the pillar remained, passed down through the ages. Thus, the story has been passed down. Abe no Nakamaro recites a Waka in the Tang Dynasty. Once upon a time, there was a man named Abe no Nakamaro. He crossed over to the Tang Dynasty as an envoy to learn the ways of that country. After many years passed, and he could not return, another man, an envoy from the Tang Dynasty named Shik, came to Japan. When he was about to return, he invited Abe no Nakamaro to accompany him back. They were at a place called Mingzo, by the seaside, where people from that country held a farewell for him. As night fell and the moon shone extremely bright, Abe no Nakamaro, recalling that he would not have a grave in this foreign land, was overcome with thoughts of Japan. Filled with both longing and sorrow, he gazed in the direction of Japan and composed this poem. "Looking far out into the vast sky, I see the moon that rose over Mount Mikasa in Kasuga." And with that, he wept. It is said that this story was passed down by those who heard Abe no Nakamaro tell it upon his return to Japan. Thus, the story has been passed down. Ono no Takamura composes Waka while in exile in Oki, Tale 45. Once upon a time, there was a man named Ono no Takamura. When an incident occurred, he was exiled to the province of Oki. As he was about to board the boat to depart, he sent the following poem to someone he knew in the capital. "Across the vast sea, passing through the many islands, I row away. Tell the people, O fishing boats of the sea." When he arrived at a place called Akashi, he stayed there for the night. It was around September, and as dawn broke, he could not sleep. While gazing at the scenery, he saw the boat disappearing behind the islands and, moved by the sight, composed this poem. As the morning mist fades on the shores of Akashi, I think of the boat vanishing behind the island. And with that, he wept. It is said that this story was passed down by those who heard Ono no Takamura tell it upon his return. Thus, the story has been passed down. Titled The Poetry of the River Shrine. Once upon a time, at the river shrine known as the Kawara-in, where Emperor Uda had once resided, the shrine had fallen into disrepair after his departure. With no one to live there, the interior of the shrine had become dilapidated. When Kino Tsurayuki, traveling from Tosa province, visited and saw the state of the shrine, he felt pity and composed the following poem. Before your time, the smoke had cleared. How lonely now the salt furnace's desolation. I see the scene stretching far and wide. This shrine had been constructed to resemble the salt furnace of Shiogama in Mutsu province, and it was said that the water from the tides was gathered and stored there, which inspired this poem. Later, the shrine was converted into a temple, and a monk named Ampo-kun took residence there. On a winter night, with the moon shining brightly, he composed a poem. In the heavens, even the furthest reaches are blanketed in frost as if the winter moon were drawing near. To the west of the shrine, on the western slope, there was a large ancient pine tree. Among those who visited and composed poetry there were the retired monk, Noin, who wrote, As the years pass, the pines on the riverbank have become covered with snow. Is it a snowstorm on the child's roof? And the poet Zenji, who wrote, Now that the folks of the village have gone, the bitter frost remains, even on the grass that the women once tended. The poet Minamoto no Michisane wrote, The mark of the passing years is that even the pine trees have grown old under the harsh winter. Later, the shrine fell into even greater disrepair, and the great pine tree was blown down by the wind. People lamented the loss, and it was said that the shrine had become a small dwelling, now recounted as a story. Thus, the story has been passed down.